What's going on, guys? This is Pete, aka Characters, and welcome back to the Carrot Poker podcast. I'm here with quite a regular feature on the show by now. Is my friend and student Elliot. What's going on, man?
Hey guys, how's it going?
So we're back today for something a little bit different, a bit of a continuation actually from last week's episode. If you didn't watch last week's, I'd recommend you go back and do that now, just so you have a clue what we're actually doing today, so we don't seem like completely insane. Last week, I spoke about how we can bridge the so-called gap between out-of-game learning and in-game application. So, what do you think about that, Elliot? Have you had has there been a disconnect between what you understand out of game and then the decisions that you can make on the tables?
Yeah, I think the tougher stuff, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So how severe has that been for you? Has there been like a big disparity or what?
I think when it begins, yeah, definitely. And then I guess as you start applying ranges or even talking through hands, the gap slowly sort of creeps together, I think.
That's the idea. And one of the methods that I spoke about last time that we can use to bridge that gap, like on the one end, you've got the out-of-game stuff, which is generally like really slow. Like you're watching a video, you're talking about hand with your coach at great length, and it takes like a minute or two to talk about each hand. And then you've got the other extreme in-game, you've got like 15 seconds to decide. So you want to bridge the gap by doing something a little bit in the middle. And so today we're going to play a game called Give Me a Number between 1 and 106. Famous game, right? You probably heard of that one.
Yeah, it's big game.
Big game on showbiz, like on prime time Sunday night television. This is Sunday evening actually, so yeah, it's appropriate. And in this game, basically, I'll be saying to Elliot, give me a number between 1 and 106, and he'll be saying 71 or something like that, and I'll be pulling up 71. And what 71 is it's the 71st hand example that I've created for the book that I'm writing. There's 106 hands to date. There'll be more when it's finished. But each one is a spot that we're going to talk about, but we're not going to talk about it at great length, at least not at first. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, Elliot, you've got 30 seconds, go. Here's the situation. I'll explain it quickly for the listeners. I'll show you it on screen, man. And then you have to just basically give me an answer in 30 seconds, what you think Hero should do and why. And then I'll give you feedback on the answer for a bit longer, and then we'll move on to the next one. We'll do this maybe like 8, 9, 10, 11, who knows, times. Okay. All right. So these spots can be anything, by the way, anything from build a range. So you have to just vaguely describe a range in the situation, or Hero might have an exact set of hole cards, and you might need to choose what to do with those. So you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm fired up.
All right. Spotlight's on you. Number between 1 and 106.
Okay, 45.
45. You see, if you go for the early numbers, you probably get the more simple hands. Not in this case, though, because you've actually picked one of the hands where Hero has the dreaded XX. Any idea what that is?
That's a range. That's a range. Bill.
It's a range, yeah. So he doesn't actually have a hand. He has a range. Okay, here's the situation. Viewers on YouTube, you'll be able to see this on your screen. But for anyone listening on iTunes or elsewhere in the wide world webs, the situation is this. Under the gun is a regular who we know is 22-18 and has a raise first in from under the gun of 14%. Hero is in the hijack, and under the gun opens to 3 big blinds and nice and easy pre-flop spot to kick us off. What's Hero's range to call this open? So what hands are you going to flat here? That's the range I'm going to ask you to build. And explain why. Go.
With my strategy, I would flat with queens, ace, king, jacks, all the pocket pairs, some Broadway suit connectors, I think.
Okay.
Is that just flatting range?
Yeah, just your flatting range. So which Broadways would you be flatting? A bit more specific.
Let's go queen, jack. Let's 10-9, 8-9, because they've got high cards, so I want to flop straights and flushes. Ace jack suited, king jack suited, ace queen suited as well. Yeah.
Okay. What about offsuit Broadways? Any?
No, I'm going to 3-bet those.
Okay. Cool. Is that your final answer? Anything? So we've got every pair: 9-8 suited, 10-9 suited, queen jack suited, jack 10 suited, king queen and ace jack suited. Yeah,
maybe like 8-7, 8-9, things like that. Suited.
Cool. And you said up to queens, right? And ace king you were flatting, so you're 3-betting kings plus, I take it.
Yeah.
Yep, that seems like a good answer. Yeah, well done. I mean, that's an easy question, I guess, because it's a range that you'll be using a lot. But the difference is when you're hijack as opposed to when you were like cut off or button. It's definitely worse for you when you're the hijack, right? So why would we need to be tighter here when we're in middle position rather than on the button facing this under the gun open?
Because we can be squeezed or there's lots of action behind us.
Mm-hmm.
So we need a stronger range to fight the other 4 players.
Definitely, yeah. So, I mean, even if no one's squeezing light in this spot, which isn't even going to be the case these days, like in 2015, oftentimes even at like 10 and L, you'll get like a light squeezer here sometimes. But we'd basically need a stronger range. I don't know if I'd flat any pocket pair. It would very much depend on who is in the blinds. Like, there's a lot of variables in this. As I've neglected to mention that in this hand there were like no fish ahead of us, which definitely, we had 2 regs and 2 nets to act after us. Which definitely impacts things a bit, because if you have a lot of fish ahead in this spot, you can open up your range considerably. What hands would you add there if you had like some fish to act behind?
Oh, what, to flat?
Yeah.
It depends on yeah, I guess a few more suited connectors.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do this. I sometimes flat with like ace 3 suited.
Yeah, I think you can do that. I mean, these suited aces thrive really, really well multi-way. So if you've got like multiple fish behind and you think you're going to get like 3 or 4 way pots, I'd always be calling an open there, 3x open, 100 big blinds deep with suited aces and stuff as well. So I guess the point is, yeah, snug range by default here is really good to flat with something like queens, ace, king, like jacks through to... I don't know if I'd flat any pair unless there were fish behind. Maybe like jacks through 7s if there weren't. And then like the best...
Actually.
What's that?
I did wonder if, like, you know, deuces or 3s, because they're not... The reg, what was it? His open was 14.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's not, he's a little bit wider, isn't he, than like an 8 or a 10 or something, so... Your implied odds are not great.
Your implied odds aren't amazing against him, and then you don't have fish behind to like boost your implied odds further. So maybe deuces through 5s we should throw in the bin in that situation. Yeah, I think so. Cool. But then on the button, I think they'd be okay because there's just less chance we get squeezed and stuff like that as well. Especially if we had fish in the blinds to act. When we've got 2 regs ahead of us here in the cutoff and the button. I guess we need to be a bit conscious as well that we don't realise the full implied odds of a hand we defend, because oftentimes we don't see the flop. Not that often because it's under the gun and people don't bluff flops against under the gun, but we will get squeezed light sometimes or run into the nuts. And a pocket pair also doesn't block any of the hands that squeeze it, right? It has like no aces or kings in it, so we get squeezed proportionately more often when we have a pocket pair than we do when we flat like king queen suited. Just worth pointing that out.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. So that's that spot solved. Ready for spot number 2. Give me another number between 1 and 106 that's not 45.
74.
74, we're jumping ahead.
Part of the game.
What's that?
Okay.
Yeah. 74, yeah, it's a good game, this one, I like it. So in this spot, Hero's in the cutoff and is dealt King of Hearts, Queen of Diamonds. And there are 2 folds to Hero, who opens in the cutoff for 3 big blinds. Let's assume we are 100 BBs deep unless stated otherwise. In this hand we've got a different stack size, so I'll just tell you what that is. The button and small blind both fold to Hero's 3 big blind raise, and the big blind, who's a fish, over 12 hands just has the stats 42-0. That's all we really know about him. Over 12 hands, we don't have a sample on like fold to c-bet or anything like that. He calls and he's got a 74 BB stack. Okay, so we are heads up to the flop, us on the cutoff as the opener, fish in the big blind as a caller, 42-0 over 12 hands. We flop comes King of Clubs, 10 of Spades, 8 of Hearts, so we flopped top pair with a Queen kicker on King 10-8 with no backdoor draws on a rainbow board. And the fish leads out for 3 big blinds into 6.5 big blinds, or probably 6 it would be after rake. So fish is donked for half pot into us, so this is a facing a donk bet. So I want you to go through the options here, tell me which one's best. Go.
There's a 42-0.
Yeah, over 12 hands he's 42-0.
I'm going to call.
Okay, so go through why calling is better than raising.
I want to keep bluffs in his range. I don't have the board crushed. He can have pocket 10s, pocket 8s. He can be on a pure bluff, so I want to keep those in. My hand is like a middling hand, so I would call.
Okay. I would raise, actually, because I feel like against the average crappy fish who's donking small at me and is passive so far, I know we don't have a great sample here, but against someone who's like passive so far and donking like just under half pot, I feel like their range is just way weighted towards second pair, some straight draw, or weak top pair, way more than it's weighted towards any of the hands that beat you. Like, of course, like 10s and 8s do beat you here. Like, you lose the sets, you lose to like King 10. But proportionately, the fish's range is going to be way more hands that you beat with top pair Queen kicker than hands that beat you. He may or may not even have ace king here, but he's definitely going to have king jack, king 9, 10 9, jack 10, queen jack. All these combos that are just like pair or gut shot or open-end straight draw or pair plus draw or whatever. So given that, I think that by raising here, we just get to build a bigger pot from those hands. I think our hand is good enough that we actually want to raise flop for value, bet turn big, and put more money into the pot now. Like if our hand were a bit weaker, like a king 9 or king 7, I'd probably be in the same camp as you and be wanting to call here. But I like a raise in this spot just because also it's unlikely, I think, that the big blind having bet small on the flop is going to suddenly like bluff 3 streets really big or anything like that. Whereas if we were against like a more aggressive fish, like someone who was running like 55-40 over this sample and was betting pot on the flop, then I'd be way more inclined just to bluff catch because for one, I don't want to build a pot to get stacks in necessarily that it would be if I raised the pot size bet. And secondly, like I'm calling the pot size donk on this king 10-8 board with my king queen because it's way more likely this player is going to continue to bluff just even blank turns and stuff like that. He's potting it on the flop. He looks like a more aggro fish. I would call against him. I think against the passive fish who ducks really small, you want to just go straight after value and pot building right away. It's almost like a half check when he dunks that small, I think.
So yeah, I just think I missed a small donk. Really, I thought it was like a pot donk.
Oh no, it's 3 into 6.5.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah,
it's the danger of this game, like because we don't have the hands like on screen. For people who are, I guess, not watching, it might be difficult to follow along. So if you miss the action, do feel free to just pause and skip back a little bit and make sure you understand the spot as we race through them. So yeah, facing dog bets is like an awkward spot, but generally speaking, the smaller the donk, the more inclined we should be to raise for value because A, we need to build a pot more, and B, it's less likely they're going to start blasting, building a huge pot for us on the turn. Against big donks, it's the opposite. The pot's already growing for us, so we don't need to build it. And secondly, it's more likely they're going to start spewing later streets as well if they spew flop. So yeah, all right.
Do you bet fold that if they raised you?
Yeah, my default would be to raise fold unless I had some more info that they were spewy. Yeah, I'd be raise folding because I think when a random passive fish like donks half pot and then 3 bets your flop raised, I think it's a pretty damn strong range there most of the time.
Sure. Okay. Cool.
Just population read. Okay, give me another number between 1 and 106. It's not 45 or 74. This is going to get complicated in a minute.
83.
83. The higher you go, the more difficult the spot.
Yeah, am I gonna
challenge yourself here?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, actually. Okay. So, Hero is in the big blind. And it folds round to the small blind, who is 20-20 over 5 hands. He's some unknown reg, basically. Well, first of all, why would I say this is a reg? Full stacked, 20-20 over 5 hands, and he raises 2.5x in the small blind. So why can I just say that's a reg, first of all?
Regs will manipulate. They won't just bet 3 big blinds or 2 big blinds. They'll do things like 2.5. It's harder to do, so they've planned it. Yeah. They've also 20-20 is a very sort of reggy open.
Yeah, I mean it's only 5 hands, but it means that every time he's put money into the pot so far, i.e. once, he's done it by raising. He's not limped or called yet.
And the 100 big blind stack is normally a reg as well, unless it's a fish running good or something like that.
So. Yeah, so we always have clues, basically. We may not... And also, here's something called combined probability, right? The more things that have to be true, the less likely they're all true together, right? So I could say, like, I think it's going to rain tomorrow. And you could say, that's probably true because you live in Glasgow. That's, like, very accurate. And then I could say, I think it's going to rain tomorrow and I'm going to fall over when I leave my house. And then you could be like, well, those 2 things probably aren't both going to happen. Like, it's unlikely you're just going to fall over when you leave your house. And I could say, it's going to rain tomorrow and I'm going to fall over when I leave my house, and when I fall over, I'm going to, like, land on a dog crap. And you could be like, well, that's really, really unlikely. And it has 3 things that have to be true at the same time. So, thankfully, that horrible fate of me falling onto a pile of wet dog shit is not going to happen, I don't think. So, bit of a metaphor, bit of a tangent, but you get the idea. In this spot, the guy would have to be would have to be a fish who is both full stacked, hadn't limped or called at all yet over 5 hands, but had raised, and had chosen this 2.5 very reggy looking open sides. It's very unlikely they're all true together. So there's my combined probability metaphor. Now on to the actual quiz time. What should Hero do in the big blind against this 2.5x open from this small blind player? What and why? Go.
I would flat because it's such a it has blockers. It has Just good implied odds. You can play in position. I'd flat this every day, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's a good answer. So what would be the problem if we like 3-bet this hand?
We would be using too much of our 3-betting range. We'd be using too many of our hands to build a large 3-betting range, meaning we're unbalanced.
Yeah, so if we were bluffing this hand and then also bluffing hands we couldn't call with, we would be bluffing like way too much. Basically, our 3-bet percentage would be through the roof. And if we were like bluffing this hand, we were kind of wasting a calling hand, and it's probably not a hand where we're going to 3-bet for value. So yeah, there's not really a clear reason, I guess, to 3-bet this hand unless like we're against a fish who was just calling ridiculously wide and we were doing it for value in isolation and to gain the initiative or something like that. But not the case here because we really think our opponent's a reg. So we're going to start off polarized and not linear, which means we're going to have good hands for value and then weak hands for bluffs, and this is going to be in the middle, so it's going to be a call. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, give me your next number.
10.
10. It's going to be like, what is pocket sixes? It's going to be like the easiest quiz in the world. Hero is on the button, and a passive fish who is 37.9 over a good sample and folds to 64% of c-bets. So that passive fish, 37.9, folds to 64% of c-bets. He limps in the cutoff. Hero's on the button with 9-8 offsuit. The small blind is a reg, 22-18, and the big blind is a net, 14-11. What should Hero do against this limp?
I would ISO. Right.
Okay.
Reasoning? 4 or 5 exit maybe. And the reason for that is that I have reasonably nitty players in the small blind and big blind, and the fish folds a lot, so it's almost like an auto c-bet.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're printing a lot of money post flop just by c-betting against this player.
The thing I'd be slightly worried of is the small blind reg could 3-bet me. That's the only thing I'd be worried, but
yeah.
It doesn't happen very often.
No, I mean, it would be worse if there were 2 regs in the small blind and big blind, because again, like combined probability, they both have to not 3-bet you for that to be good, whereas there's only one guy here that's likely to do it light at all. So, yeah, definitely. And does it matter the fact you only have 9 high? What about like people listening who are like, but we only have 9, and 9 and an 8, like an offsuit hand. It's the 9 of diamonds, 8 of clubs. Like it's not going to flop all that great. Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter because statistically the fish is not going to fold, not hit anything either, and they play fit or fold. So we can play in position and just c-bet half pot, which means we have to win 33% of the time, and they fold 64. So that's just printing money.
Yeah, so on most boards, it needs to work a third of the time. It's going to work like 2/3 of the time, even more on dry flops probably. Yeah, this is a no-brainer ISO. The reason is that you just have so much fold equity here coupled with good position that you don't need any frequent strength in your hand. You don't need your hand to connect well with lots of flops or anything like that. And you could probably use even a few hands worse than this one to ISO, so that's definitely the correct answer. Yeah, well done. All right, next number.
I'm going to choose 55.
55, okay. Hand 55.
Yeah.
Hero's in the big blind and is dealt king 8 of diamonds. It folds round to the button, who's an aggro reg running 24-20 with a c-bet of 65%. And the aggro reg on the button opens to 2.5 big blinds. The small blind folds action to Hero. Pre-flop, Hero elects to flat here. I think is pretty standard, just given the button's open small, 2.5x. We've got a suited king that's probably, again, a bit too good to turn into 3-bet bluff. Makes a fine defend, it's better than folding. So we make the standard call for the extra 1.5 BBs in the big blind.
Yeah.
We see the flop heads up, and we check a flop of Queen 8-6 rainbow, where we have a backdoor diamond draw. So we've hit middle pair on the flop with our King 8, Queen 8-6 rainbow, and there's the 6 of diamonds on the flop too. So we've made a backdoor flush draw to go with our middle pair king kicker. We check, and the button bets 3 big blinds. What should we do?
I would call. And my reasoning for that is that the button, by the sound of it, the button's very aggro, and they would fire quite often, and they could have a lot of air here. I've got one overcard and a backdoor flush draw, and I don't want to turn my hand into a bluff just in case they re-raise me.
Yeah, and like also why turn it into a bluff as far as your range is concerned? Like if you're bluffing this hand, like middle pair, I mean, for one, he's going to continue every single better hand to your raise and not too many worse hands. Yeah. And for two, if you're just going to like raise and bombs away with middle pair here, I mean, you'd just be bluffing anything. Like, think of all the hands like gut shots are just so much more suitable to do that with that don't have showdown value. So why is it in general just a bad idea to turn showdown value into bluffs?
Well, because you can get to showdown and you can win the hand there. You can also encourage whoever's in the out position to bet into you, so you can use it as a bluff catcher as well.
Yeah, so you can get value from worse hands. Like something like mediocre showdown value, like King 8 on this board, isn't going to get any value by building a huge pot. It's going to get value by keeping the pot small and letting your opponent barrel at you and bluff at you. So we're going to call flop here. How many streets would you call on like most runouts here? 1, 2, or 3?
I don't know. 2, I think, normally.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends if I've got history. Sometimes, and I have done, I've called down aggro fish with king high and I've won over 3 streets, but it depends on the player. As a standard, probably 2.
Mm-hmm.
I would say as a standard.
Yeah, I think 2 is good. It depends on the turn. I mean, this board's Queen 8-6, just as a reminder to the texture. We've got King 8. If the turn was to come like an ace or was to come like a jack or something that just like improves loads of our opponent's range, or even a 10 or a 9 even, I think we can like have an easier time folding because a lot of our range improves on those cards. Any gut shots or opening straight draws and things that we float with are gonna, improve on those cards. Our range is going to make 2 pair sometimes on those cards. So we want to think about our whole range, and against the reg and aggro reg, we probably do need to be calling 2 streets here, but we also want to be conscious of the other things that we call flop with. And how's our range improving? Do we need to call King 8 on every turn? No. We definitely need to call it on diamond turns where we turn our backdoor flush draw into a full flush draw. And we also need to call it on any turn, obviously, that improves us. And probably on blank turns as well, where the rest of our range isn't improving enough. So on like the 4 spades turn, our range isn't improving very much, and therefore King 8 is still relatively high in that range. But on the Jack of Hearts turn, where a heart draw comes that we don't hold, obviously, and also like it's a straight completing 2 pair completing card, our range has got stronger, but King 8's therefore down in a lower part of it. So think about your range there as well when you're deciding that. But yeah, flop's a really standard call, I agree.
Cool.
Okay. Right, let's do a couple more.
95.
Let's ramp up the difficulty. Okay.
Yeah.
Hand 95. Heroes on the button with XX. Dun dun dun. And under the gun folds, hijack folds, cutoff folds. Hero min opens with XX, which is his range, which is whatever hand hero should do that with. Small blind folds, and big blind raises to 8 big blinds.
Yeah.
So we get 3-bet by the big blind, a 4x 3-bet basically. I'm going to put you on the spot here and try and make you go through it.
What's their 3-bet percentage, do you know?
Yeah, so they're 1917 with a 13% 3-bet.
Okay.
And what's that other stat? I don't remember. There's a 69 stat after that as well, but I can't really... Oh, that's their fold to 4-bet stat. So that's their fold to 4-bet, and we've got 17,000 hand sample on this guy. So he's 1917, 13% 3-bet, 69% fold to 4-bet. I'm just going to ask you a general strategy question here. How should Hero play his range? You don't need to tell me exactly every combo, but I want you to give me some sections of Hero's range, how wide they would be, and give me example hands that fit into them. Go.
Okay. So we can flat reasonably wide because it's 13%.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be flatting all my, I think from 8s to 10s, and I would be 4-betting my jacks plus ace king,
mm-hmm.
and I would be 4-betting as a bluff, I think king 10, jack 10, and then maybe some suited aces.
Do you mean king 10 and jack 10?
King 10, jack 10.
Why jack 10?
Off. King 10 and jack 10 off I'd use as a bluff, as a 4-bet bluff, because they fold so often.
Okay.
And then I think some suited aces as a bluff, as a 4-bet bluff as well.
Okay.
And then I would flat, say, 10-9, jack 9, queen 10 suited. These are all suited. I'm not flatting any offsuits broadways. I would flat king queen.
Right.
I would flat ace jack
mm-hmm.
off. What else would I flat?
It's tough, isn't it, to come up with loads of different sub ranges like right on the spot like that. I think you're doing a pretty decent job.
I have a rough strategy which I kind of apply. It depends because he's folding quite a lot, so you can actually throw in more.
So this 69% fold to 4-bet is pretty huge, because if we were to calculate the required fold equity on a 4-bet bluff, let's just say like he's made it 8 big blinds over our 2. How big would you 4-bet there?
20 bigs.
Okay, so if you make it 20 bigs, then your risk is going to be 18. You'd be risking 18 additional, and you're trying to pick up a pot of 1050 there. So we do 18 divided by 2850, risk divided by risk plus reward, and 63% would be our RFE, our required fold equity on a 4-bet bluff. So he's folding 69%. It's just like massive. He's just giving us like such an incredible price basically to pick up the blinds. And I don't even think we need to make it as big as 20. We could maybe even make it like 18 or 19 and make that even better. So in a vacuum, clearly 4-bet bluffing is going to be like really, really profitable here against this guy. Not only has he got a wide 3-bet range, but he's folding the majority of it to a 4-bet. So I think I would the difference between the way I play here and the way that you described would probably be that I'd be flatting more. So I'd probably be flatting like all my suited broadways, like probably like ace 10 off, king jack off, king queen off, ace jack off, because 13% is pretty huge in a big blind, especially if that's polarized. That's a lot of bluffs. And then I'd be like flatting suited connectors, probably pairs 7s plus, 7s through 10s or 6s through 10s. I'd just be flatting a bit wider because he's just so ridiculously wide with 3-bets. Then yeah, I'd be turning the bottom of my folding range, at the bottom of my calling range, top of my folding range rather, into a bluff. So I'd probably be bluffing. I agree with like king 10 off. I probably wouldn't use jack 10 off because I'd rather just use hands with like kings and aces in them, because they just, when he's folding that much.
Did I say jack 10 off?
Yeah, twice. I questioned you on it and then you like repeated it and like
no,
it was definitely jack 10 off.
King 10 off, jack off.
Yeah, king jack. That's what I thought you meant, and I was kind of like, all right, I just let him roll with the jack. So why is king jack much better than jack 10 to 4-bet bluff?
We block the kings, and the kings can have ace king and kings.
Right. So we block just a load of nutted stuff, and against a guy who's only 5-betting the nuts, because I mean he's clearly folding to 4-bets a lot. It's going to be even more important that we like block his value hands. It's going to be even huger for us, if that's a word. So yeah, I think that we need to 4-bet really wide here. I'd probably 4-bet something like 2 bluffs to every value hand or something like that. Something quite exploitable to start with. Not obvious. I don't want to like 4-bet 8-4 suited like the very bottom of my opening range. But one thing you want to think about here is as well that you want to defend as much as your white button range as possible against a guy who's attacking you relentlessly. So you need to make sure you're not over folding here. You need to probably make sure you're over defending your range. That's to say you're defending more of it than would be balanced. So to do that, you probably want to flat very wide, 4-bet bluff. Like you had 40 combinations of value, jacks plus an ace king, 24 in pairs, 6 each for each of the pairs, jacks, queens, kings, aces, and then you've got 16 combos of ace king, 4 aces with 4 kings. So that's 40 combinations you've got for value. So then you could probably have 80, 90, even 100 as a bluff would be good there. So you can really ramp up a lot of those offsuit ace x and king x, as well as like all your suited kings. I'd probably flat most suited aces there, to be honest. I think you can against someone so wide in position.
What would you okay. You 4-bet off aces.
Not like terrible ones, but maybe like ace 10, ace 9 or something like that if I wasn't flatting ace 10. I wouldn't 4-bet like every offsuit ace because that's way too many combos and they're not the best. Yeah.
King 10, king jack, ace 10, ace 9 maybe, yeah. I can see that, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so ace 9, ace 10, king jack, king 10. That's all offsuit, that's 48 combos, then you just need to make up the other 52 or whatever in suited combos, which is like, you know, just having like 12 to 13 suited hands, like king 5, king 6 suited, king 7 suited, etc. Just keep going with that. I also wouldn't worry about 4-betting in this spot any hand that like is a suited connector or anything for the way it flops, because I don't expect a guy folding to 69% of 4-bets to be flatting my 4-bets very often out of position, if at all. So I'm not really concerned with playability in my 4-bet range, I'm more concerned with blockers.
Yeah, he's got jam off it. So.
Yeah, pretty much. Right, let's do one more and then we'll wrap up for today. Give me a number.
What we've not done, let's do, have we done any 60s?
Don't think so.
Alright, 62.
Okay, hand 62. So, Hero's in the small blind this time, and the Hijack, who's a passive fish running 34-18 with a 36% c-bet over 230 hands, opens the pot for min, opens to 2 big blinds in the hijack. Cutoff and button both fold, and hero flats in the small blind, calling 1.5 BBs with jack of clubs, 10 of clubs, big blind folds. So hero's flatted a hijack min open from a fish with jack 10 suited clubs and goes to the flop, heads up against passive fish. I guess we're calling here for implied odds, really, just trying to flop a nice hand for a very good price against a weaker player who's going to pay us off. Hero checks the flop, which is Queen 9-6 rainbow. So hero has a backdoor flush draw and open and straight draw on this flop with his jack 10 of clubs on Queen 9-6 rainbow. And hijack bets pot, so the fish bets 5 big blinds into 5 big blinds. What should hero do? Go.
Flat. Yeah, call.
Okay, why?
Because you don't want to turn your hand into a bluff because you're not there yet, and their c-bet is insanely low.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably got ace queen plus. I think they just got pure value.
Yeah, so they've got very strong value heavy range. So why is it not a good idea to semi bluff against a strong range?
Because I think they will re-raise you back, and then you can't realise your equity for cheap. You want to just call, and then you can either check raise, make it, or donk. You could probably even donk. Don't know. But anyway, you just want to call, so you don't have to just fold or to a raise, I think, or have to get it in.
Yeah, and also just why build a big pot when you're an underdog here, right? You're not actually a favourite equity-wise. So you're not value raising the flop. You're getting more money in with no fold equity. That's the key behind. So this is a common leak actually that I get in newer students. Like they're not really sure when to turn draws into bluffs, when to play them fast, when to play them slow. Definitely don't play draws fast when you have like no fold equity at all and you have loads of implied odds by calling, because it's a real shame to build a pot as an underdog when you're just not going to get there most of the time, and B, like why do you want to basically just put loads of money in against better hands? Like why would you want to go for fold equity when there is none? You just don't want to do that. And obviously getting blown off the pot, like you say, is a disaster. Like you hurt your implied odds. When you raise, you already hurt your implied odds because you make it more for yourself to see the next card. It was only 5 big blinds. You raised to 15. You've just made it an extra 10 for you just to try and realize your equity. If you're never getting folds, then it just doesn't make any sense to do that. Also, this draw is like one that's good enough to call with, so it's good enough to remain in the hand, but it's nowhere near good enough to like stand a 3-bet on the flop. So you don't want to take a medium strength draw usually and raise that in any case. You'd rather like raise with a draw you could either like get it in with if you were like had like a super combo draw, or maybe if you had fold equity you like to raise with a weaker draw that you're not so bothered if you get 3-bet on the flop and get made to fold that draw, like a gut shot or something like that. I would never raise like an open-end straight draw that's got 8 good outs but just can't stand a 3-bet, especially when I don't have any fold equity. So clearly a call on the flop, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't think there's any reason to ever even bluff in this hand at all.
No, definitely not.
You don't. There's no need to balance. You're not playing a balanced player. You play your hand.
Yeah, you just play exploitatively. You play a range exploitatively, and you play every hand like it should be played in the vacuum for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I don't think you should ever try and be balanced against fish. You just exploit them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one thing you might want to balance with is just like your sizing. If the fish is actually like a thinking fish, like maybe you don't want to like overbet the pot 6 times pot. Like it's kind of obvious you have a value hand when you're doing that, even like a terrible player, unless they're like horrendous. There are limits, but for the most part, balance is not a primary consideration. Like how to get the most EV out of the hand in a vacuum is. Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, cool, man. Well done. Good effort. I was putting you on the spot there.
It's hard to speak and think at the same time in 30 seconds.
Yeah, so, it's difficult. You don't know what hand you're going to get either. You can get anything. So, yeah, it's like when you do a hand history review, you've seen the hands before in your own session, right? So you're ready for them. This is just literally me being like, here's a random hand you've never seen before. Go. It's tough. Yeah. I think you did really well there.
Thank you.
So I will get other students on the show and you can compare your performance to theirs. For sure. Cool. I just need to like mark off the hands that everyone's using so I don't like repeat them and they don't come with pre-prepared answers. Alright guys, well thank you for listening to or watching this episode of the Carrot Poker podcast. I'll be back next week with more instructional poker content. Please leave me any feedback on iTunes, YouTube. Send me an email to admin@carrotcorner.com or check out carrotcorner.com. If you want coaching by me as well, just send me an email. Check out my website for pricing, packages, that sort of stuff. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Also, if you have ideas about what you'd like to see in future episodes, feel free to let me know what those are. Okay, guys, good luck at the tables, and until next time, bye from me.